right, thanks for joining us for this live on this Wednesday, the 15th of the new year, midway through. Midway through January, we're all set to talk a little Michigan football, and there's plenty of things to talk about. I say, as always, it seems like there is always things to discuss when it comes down to Michigan, and the big topic today is something that you probably don't want to hear about, but we have no control over who's coming in and who's going. We just look and react at the news. There has been some portal movement for the Maize and Blue. Michigan with an offensive lineman jumping in the portal in the last few hours. We'll get to that. We'll have some tackle talk here on this Wednesday. Also, we'll look ahead to the Lions in their big divisional game against the Commanders on Saturday night. But we'll start with this big news. And the big news is Wink Martindale interviewing with the Falcons yesterday. That is confirmed. And now he is expected, probably in Indianapolis today, talking with the Colts. Two teams, Falcons and the Colts, and Michigan had Wink Martindale for 1 year, and now you feel like you're in a little bit of limbo if you're a Michigan fan. It was a 1 year wild ride with Wink because he came in, and it's like, all right, this is great continuity. You get Wink Martindale. He's the master of what Jesse Minter, he taught Jesse Minter. He was the architect of this particular defense. Mike McDonald before him, same thing. Learned under him from the Ravens. You know all these things. But the thought was that it was going to be seamless transition, and it was anything but. It was rocky. It was like Wink had lost his fastball, and you're listening to the players from the preseason and then through the season. It's the McCarthy page is the one that stands out in the offseason when he was like, hey, it's a seamless transition. He's like, no, everything's different. Wink's everything. Everybody's laughing. And then he's like, no, it's all different. And then when they get rolled and look terrible on defense against Texas, McCarthy page was like, yeah, we've got communication issues. And, they were struggling to get what Wink wanted to install, and the play calling, it just wasn't working, and there were a lot of people that, I don't know what you call them, tape bros or whatever, internet bros, that were just thinking just Wink is just all out blitz all the time, and this is not going to work, and he's no Jesse Minter and all this. And then Wink came up big in his last two games, where not only does it look like he's got his fastball, as it looks like, he is a guru on the defensive side. Funny how sports work. You have, you take a whole body of work, like Sam Darnold this year for the Vikings. You say, man, he was incredible. Should have been in the MVP, was kind of, and then it wasn't. And then people would say, man, he should be involved in the MVP conversation. But then the Lions worked him over, and then he fell completely apart in their wild card game against the Rams. And now everybody's like, Sam Darnold. And then Wink, it was like the other way around. People were like, Wink is too old, or whatever it was. I don't know if you were talking about him being too old. Then he had just lost it. He then fired. Ravens didn't want him anymore. Giants fired him, and he's just done. And then he goes up against Ohio State and calls a doozy. And then he follows it up with the same thing against Alabama, and Jalen Milroe had the Tide in a straitjacket. You put Alabama and you put Ohio State in check, it makes people stand up and take notice. And I think for me, a lot of it, you're an NFL team, you're keeping an eye on what's going on in college. Since Wink held Ohio State, shut out Ohio State in the second half and held them to 10 points overall, in the playoffs, Ohio State has been averaging 37 points. They put up a big 42 spot on Tennessee, followed that up with they could have scored 100 Yeah, Ryan Day. Maybe he was talking about Oregon. He could have scored 100 if he wanted to against Oregon, and then he doubled up Texas with 28 points, and you add those three up and divide by three, you get 37 points. And you go back and you're like, wow, how did Michigan do this? Well, Wake Martindale is part of it. Yeah, you people have a hard time with this, but your personnel with Michigan, what they had a lot of times, and it even goes back to, I can remember Michigan winning it all in 97. Say, oh yeah, Michigan won it all in 97. No. People would say Charles Woodson won it all in 97. It wasn't Lloyd Carr, it was Charles Woodson. Meanwhile, there were 10 other players on that defense. Like all of them went to the NFL, but it was Charles Woodson. And you think about that Saturday against the Buckeyes back on November 30th. And it was like, Mason Graham and Kenneth Grant, they won that game. Yeah, they were a big part of it. And so were the other 9 Michigan players. And so was Wink Martindale. And, Sharon Moore, if you give the credit give the credit where it's due. But Wink had a great game plan. And if you've noticed since Michigan beat Ohio State and shut them out in the second half, that people want to, some people give the credit to Michigan, but they also blame Ohio State. Oh, Ohio State didn't know what they were doing. Wink knew what he was doing. And, Michigan fans have been a little bit ticked off over the last 3 weeks because people are like, oh, Day, such an idiot when it came to Michigan. His game plan is like, no, yeah, well, Wink Martindale and Michigan's defense had a little bit of something to do with it. So you just keep hearing it, over and over again about that game. So, Wink's got his fastball. And, when you hire, part of the problem when you hire a lifer in the NFL is that they're going to want to go back to the NFL as soon as they can. And so this is, you're hoping for the best with Wink as a defensive coordinator, and then it finally hit, and you're thinking, this will be nice next year, and then he could be gone. And so that's a tough pill to swallow if you're a Michigan fan. Michigan loses coordinators left and right, and they're having all this success. I didn't say all of this success on the field this year, but the previous years, they were losing defensive coordinators and offensive coordinators left and right, and they were able to fill the job and be able to keep it going. So that has been something that Harbaugh was good at, and now we'll see how good Sharon Moore. We were just sitting around last week saying, Michigan, they just lose Kirk Campbell. Other than that, everybody's staying around, feeling pretty good. Now, you think about with Wink interviewing, if he goes to the Colts, if he goes to the Falcons, maybe somebody else, that, all right, well, who would replace him? And you look on the staff, and immediately because you're a big Michigan fan, that all of the Michigan defensive coaches have previous defensive coordinator experience. All of them have been defensive coordinators. That was a nice thing for Sharon Moore to say. It was a nice thing you heard Wink say. All these guys, so they know they've been around the block, and say, well, one of them would be elevated. The other thing first thing you think of all being coordinators and promoting from within. Then you think of, Wink's tree, the Ravens. And of course, then you'd go to the Chargers. And you think, got any of those guys sitting around ready to come on in and run this defense? All, I think, very fair, logical, and, great places to start. For me, and that's where I went. If you're looking for a name, the first thing that I came up with was, I thought last year that it should have been, for me, what am I just making the call that Steve Clinkscale was on Michigan staff, and it could have been a nice Mike Elston, who went to the Chargers as well. He could have been, Elston's a little bit older, Klink a little bit younger, and I thought it could have been one of those two, and instead they went with Wink, which was fine. I thought at the time, you go back and watch or listen to all the pods, see how I thought about it, but The name that I have come up with is with Klink. It makes, to me, it just makes all the sense in the world. He knows the system. He knows Michigan. He's from the Midwest, Ohio, and then, coached. He's got the national championship. The only wrinkle with Klink is that once you go to the pros, and bless everybody out in California with the wildfires and everything, I don't know. But you get out to California and you got a lot of money. Well, driving in a drop top into practice in that brand new stadium all the time and looking around. And then, you're talking with people back home and they're like, well, it's going to be -10 this week. Well, we're tough. Klink might be like, I'm good, but it would be a promotion. So that's what I think. I think Klink would makes a lot of sense. The only thing that I don't know is, how much Klink and his family are enjoying the pros and enjoying Cali and everything that is involved with the Golden Coast. So that's where I sit. Now, I like to take feedback on this show to see what the Michigan people are thinking. And to be able to do that, I froze up for a second. I click on the names, and Mr. Martini is first up. He says, no Klink, now no wink. Let's hope we don't sink. We got a little rhyming and stealing going on today. I don't mind that. Scott is talking about Wink is gone. He'll end up accepting one of the 3 jobs he is interviewing for. I don't know about 3 jobs. I think that he's interviewing. Oh, no, he has interviewed for the Falcons. Today, he is reportedly interviewing with the Colts. I haven't seen the Colts put out something. We have had an interview with Wink, and so maybe there will be a 3rd team. The Bengals, there was a thought, and the Bengals were like, we don't want Wink. He's like our arch enemy. That's like Michigan hiring Mike Vrabel or something like that. There's Keegan. Good to see him. Here's Tim. It isn't what if he's getting a job from one of those teams. We should consider bringing in one of McDonald's assistants or even mentors. Yeah, I'm not, if you didn't like how I presented it, Tim, that's fine. Let's see. I don't know, but I'm with you. It seems like a very, not an easy thing to do, but a wise thing to do would be going to one of the M&M boys and looking on their staff and saying, let's go. Marmar says Wink ain't leaving because he won't make the same amount of money in the NFL as he does in college. Money. Well, I guess that's a interesting point. Wink was making he was the 2nd highest paid defensive coordinator this past year. The only guy that was making more was down at LSU, and then you get a bump with his deal at Michigan. So maybe he's the highest paid defensive coordinator now, and you look at the salaries in the NFL. So there's a point to that about the money, but I haven't looked to see what top defensive coordinators in the NFL are getting paid. But if it's, I don't know, if it's substantially less, well, now I think you've got a point, Mar. And he says he loves the grannies on the recruiting trail. Yeah, I don't know if he loves the grannies, the old grandpa, the old G. Talked about being a closer. Yeah, who knows about how much he really does. You better say while you're employed in college as a defensive coordinator that you really like recruiting, you like, the college and experience and all those kind of things. I mean, what can you imagine being like, nah, I like it. You think I like going out shaking a bunch of hands and talking to a bunch of people and eating a bunch of, no, I don't like that. So, yeah, I don't know if he does or not. It's a funny thing to say. Keegan says the pay is similar and he owes a year of his contract. He may not leave this year. Colby wants to know the chances that he bolts to the NFL. Do I think Michigan will fight to keep Wink? Michigan he's the highest paid defensive coordinator. Is Wink going to be like, well, now I want a private jet and bump it up, give me another, tear that contract up and give me a clause and I'll be the highest, sure. You know what? That's how it works, right? You get some leverage. You can go in there and say anything you want. I don't think if he wants more from Michigan and he's using it, fine. That's what I think that would be, Michigan fighting for him. I think Michigan would give him what he wants. I don't think he's going to say, give me $6 million. But I think a reasonable raise or whatever, I think that I could see that. My thing is that Wink is a lifelong NFL coordinator. Lifelong. You go back. And he got fired from the Giants and nobody was hiring him as a coordinator, so he went to Michigan. And now NFL teams want him again. To me, that makes me think that he would go back to the NFL. But, the part that, we're speculating on, how much does he really like the college game? The money part, what did he think of the NFL? He's able to compare and contrast them. We have seen a lot of coaches over the last year or two say, oh, the college game, and usually the NFL always wins. It's the highest level. You don't have to go through all the recruiting and you're coach. You get the game plan, you're coaching. Your players, it's a business across the board. None of this other. It's football. College is a little bit different, although it is becoming a lot more like the NFL. It's a lot of talk by me to say that I would think that if one of those, any NFL team offers Wink Martindale a defensive coordinator job, I think he goes. So that's my answer to what's going on and how I think about it. Keegan says he likes Lamar Morgan. If he keeps the same defense, the turnover is crazy. Yeah. This might be a little bit unfair to Lamar Morgan, and you can always get better at it. When I hear Lamar Morgan at his news conferences stand up there, I don't sense, and again, you can get better at addressing the public, addressing the media, standing up in front of the cameras, but he's got some work to do, I think, there. That's not everything, but it is something. You say, I've had a million guys that go out there and, sweet talk. It isn't not anything about sweet talking or anything else, but you do have to be able to go up there. He doesn't, to me, he needs to work on that aspect of it. Again, he could work at it and he could get better. But I think, to me, that's the part that he falls a little bit short. That's me. But maybe he's already worked at that and he's good to go. That's his an honest assessment that you might not get from anyone else. But I think we'll see if how that plays out. Marmar's on a roll. Some guys, you get in, you just hear they're ready to go. Marmar says he loves Michigan, I believe, because he would have dipped yesterday after the interviews. Dipped. I mean, dip is like skip town, or I don't think he had both interviews yesterday. I could be wrong. No, I don't think I'm wrong. The interview was supposed to be yesterday with the Falcons, and that was confirmed. So Adam Schefter, right before I came on, said that the Falcons did interview him, and today was supposed to be the Colts. So you talking about interviews yesterday and dipping, again, sometimes I don't know everything that everybody's talking about. So you're thinking that he still might be in town, and that's a good sign that he's at his house or something. I'm about any of the clues or anything that anybody's saying, but I don't know. I don't know why Scott would bring up Chris Partridge. Chris Partridge is never coming back to Michigan as a coach. I'm going to go ahead. Isn't he suing Michigan currently? So I don't believe that's happening. With a pending lawsuit and everything else, even if he wasn't suing him, he wouldn't be coming back. I do think that Mr. and Mrs. Ellison, please help. Oh, so you're thinking that this is a Jolin thing? I don't think that's how. Are you ready to make a wink, an offer you can't refuse, go over the top? Michigan can already do that. I don't think they really need Jolin for that. Dipped out, like leave. Yeah, not yet. We get people. I'm good, man. I'm up there. What's up with the NOA? Notice of allegations. I think that. Do I think that Michigan is going to be, slapped with some kind of big ban or something? No, I don't. I think that they will hit Stallions with a 2-year show cause and guys that are out there with the Chargers as well, and it'll be a big fine. I mean, that's the best that's what I can determine anyways with people that I talk with, and then trying to put the pieces together, and you got one side that everybody's like, I hope they get, and then you got the Michigan side like, it's nothing. So you got to try to. I don't think it's going to be anything major, for Michigan. If you could say like they'll be embarrassed for a day, but I don't think Michigan fans are embarrassed. Like they'll see something and they'll be like, screw the NCAA, screw all you, we get our chance. So they're not taking away Michigan's championship, and I don't think they're going to get a bowl ban. So everything else is all for show. And so they'll do whatever they can to show out a little bit, and it'll be a day story, and Michigan fans will be like, oh, the NCAA, what a clown show that is. And then everybody else will say, oh, Michigan's getting off light. And then, you can argue back and forth and, we're Michigan, you guys are, and all this. And then we'll move on. Unless it's on Twitter or something, it'll probably go back and forth for a couple of weeks or a couple months. So that's where I'm at. Before we move on, we've got a few more that wants to go through this. Yeah, look, Michigan won the national championship last year, so that's it. Scott wants to point out that Harbaugh did a fantastic job with the Chargers. Yeah, they laid an egg in their playoff game, but they made the playoffs. So it was a good year for the Chargers. I don't know, fantastic job. He if he would have won on Sunday, I'd be sitting around saying, "Oh, that's a fantastic job." I don't know. I don't want to. I'm not bringing. He did do a good job. I don't know if I wouldn't. He had a fantastic regular season, and then he laid an egg in the playoffs. So overall, fantastic regular season, laying an egg. He did a good job in totality. That's how I would put it. Tim's not really thinking it's money with Wink. It's him wanting to go back to the league. If it is competitive, I believe he's a pure lifer and just wants to coach football. Yeah, that's, I think, what I was saying, Tim. I agree with you. Good point. Scott thinks that Michigan needs a good young DC who will stick around for a few years. Well, that would be nice. That would be nice, but, I would also take – what are we sitting here talking about? Wink for 1, Minter for 2, and McDonald for 1. I would take, if the next 4 years there were 3 coordinators and they were like McDonald, Minter, and Wink, I would take it, even if there was that turnover. So I'm about the production out on the field. And, you hire a defensive coordinator, and he does a great job. People are like, wow, this is a great scheme. Let's hire him to be a head coach, or let's take him to the NFL. Harbaugh knew that McDonald, he wanted to be an NFL guy, and the first chance he had to go to the NFL, he went to the NFL. Minter is kind of the same thing. He wanted to go to the NFL. Harbaugh knew that. You knew that. I knew that. And then Wink was an NFL guy. So maybe you could say we just need, I don't care if he's young, because look at Wink. You need a defensive coordinator. If you want him to stick around, hire a college guy that loves the college game. But, to me, it doesn't matter if he's young. And, yeah, you'd like somebody to stick around for a few years. But let's say they hired a good young defensive coordinator and he goes out and just turns heads. Everybody like, this is the next great DC and all. Somebody's going to try to get him. Internet bully, talking about NOA. I'll leave that NOA to other people. Like, when it comes out, we'll have our thoughts about it. But I'm just waiting. To me, there's no reason to do any kind of churning it up. There's nothing new on it. I want to see what they have to say, and then I'll evaluate it from there. Like I said, I already know how, if you're like in the Michigan media, you'll want to pacify all the Michigan fans. This is how things have worked. And, that you'll just be like, almost all of them will be like, this is a joke. Say things like, Keegan, internet bullies, you guys are all clowns. And then everybody else will be like, you got off light. And that's how it's going to go. It doesn't seem to me that's like an entertaining for you to go through. Maybe it's entertaining if I would just shout at this camera about, the NCAA, how they've done, Michigan dirty or whatever else. I hope they just get off, to tell you the truth, as light as possible, and then we can just move on. So that's my hope for Michigan. Okay. Scott still wants to go to the Fantastic. Yeah, they had a good season, Scott. Shuggles. What's up, Shuggles? My realistic expectations for next season. But I know this team has mostly come together with the 12 portal additions that they've had, and we know who's coming back. How quickly Bryce Underwood gets the passing game going with this collection of wide receivers that he has is going to tell the story of how far Michigan goes. I know there's a lot of other pieces. The line looks good. I feel good about the running backs. On the defensive side, Wink or Clink or Dink or whoever comes in, they've got some pretty good. I got some heavy weights to replace, but they've also, looking at the guys that they had that were coming back, watching them in the ReliaQuest Bowl, Michigan, and the pieces that they're bringing in, recruiting wise, with Marshall and NOB, the other Nathaniel Owasso Boateng. I mean, those guys could be impact players right away. And so I think the defense could be pretty good. They got Ohio State at home. I think they could make. My realistic expectation, as I sit here right now, is that I think Michigan can make the college football playoff, and they should make the college football playoff. But how far along? The unknown to me is Underwood. Sky's the limit for him. And then the wide receivers and the passing game. Is Michigan going to be able to put a 5-star quarterback that's going to have some growing pains, and they're not going to really be able to click in the passing game and rely on a running game? Well, then you're talking about, you see a couple losses in there. Realistically, I'm thinking playoffs is what I'm thinking about. Andres wants to talk Chargers. They need more weapons on offense. McCarthy is good, but Quentin Johnson is not giving them the Fiesta Bowl performance on a regular basis. He's been a disappointment. Yeah, I think you're right about that. Look, they lost, they had Keenan Allen. I say goodbye, and they brought in a rookie. Rookie wide receivers were great this year, and McConkey is good, but yeah, you don't look back there and think, Quentin Johnson, actually, there are some games he had a he had a couple decent games this year, actually a couple really good games. But yeah, they need in the NFL, man, you need some big time weapons. Look at the Lions, who we're going to talk about coming up here in 10 minutes. Compare the Lions offense to what the Chargers have going. I mean, they're nowhere near of what's going on. And then Herbert, he laid an egg in the playoff game too. So there's a lot to like about him, and I know that's a big reason that Harbaugh took the job. But yeah, you better give him some playmakers around there, because you looked at it, and there's some things not to like when it comes down to the Bolts. All right, let's see if we have some people that just jumped in. Let me get in here. Tim says he would rather have coordinators that other people want than not. It means you're doing something right consistently. Well said, Tim. Chase says, how do I feel if the Suckeyes win the Natty? I feel like it's a plus either way because we beat the national champs, if that's the case. Well, if Ohio State wins, it's kind of like eating some past date, soup or something. You eat it and you don't like it, and then it makes you feel bad for a couple of days. But you're able at some point to get back up and flush it out of your system. It's not going to be anything good, but you can't do anything about it. I know there's a lot of fresh lines to put out there about this is. I feel great about where Michigan is at with Ohio State, and the last 4 years, Michigan has pulled up and flipped the tables, and they're sitting there against Ohio State looking them right in the eye, and they can compete with them on virtually everything. You could say the transfer credits, Ohio State can have a little bit of advantage there. All right. But for most of the 21st century, Ohio State had a gigantic advantage, is that they were, handing out the money to the players to get them. And Michigan wasn't doing that. And that was a huge advantage for Ohio State, like for a lot of the SEC teams. And now Michigan can play that game. So I feel great about that. And Michigan has everything else, except those transfer credits there. But everything else that you would want, Michigan is one of the halves, and there's not a bunch of halves. They should be, getting to the college football playoff and having a chance to win a national championship. As much as Ohio State or Georgia, or who else are we even talking about? Michigan, to me, seems like they're going to be an elite football program over the next 5 to 10 years. That's what I think. So, Ohio State, there's nothing I can do about it. Not about the expanded playoffs. In 21, Michigan beat them, and Ohio State made the playoffs, and they should have won the national championship if they could have made a kick. So that's it. The positive about it is, Ryan Day is Michigan's in his head. That's a great thing. I've seen Ohio State and Michigan players and Michigan coaches' head. It's not a very fun thing. It's like, here we go again. Oh my God. It's just inevitable that you're going to lose. There's no end in sight. That's what Ohio State, Michigan has. That doesn't matter if they win the national championship or not. Michigan has that. And that's no small thing. That's a great thing. Andres wants to know if I think JJ will stay in Minnesota now. I thought JJ was staying in Minnesota before. I thought that if Sam Darnold played halfway decent against the Lions or in his playoff game against the Rams, that the Vikings could franchise him for a year. They haven't seen what JJ can do. So they'll want to know what he can do, moving forward. So you can't evaluate him when, he's rehabbing his knee. They'll just be able to find out maybe in some OTAs and what he has there, but they don't know. And there was a chance because the draft this year with the quarterbacks, it's a little light. And there's going to be a lot of teams. Maybe they, you would get an offer. This is if Darnold looked halfway decent, but now Darnold didn't. So they might franchise Darnold for a year, or they might try to sign him to I don't know, call it a low ball. Who's throwing him a bunch of money now? So yeah, JJ. I think JJ's in Minnesota. I wanted to see JJ out of Minnesota. Scott is hoping for a Final Four appearance from Michigan basketball. So am I. Gio coming back. And Scott saying it looked great in the exhibition. Yeah, he did. No doubt. You don't get too excited about, you get excited, but don't get too excited about exhibition ball. I can recall watching Joey Harrington in the preseason when the Lions picked him. Oh, he looked so good. I mean, he stood in the pocket. He was killing the Dolphins and Browns. Oh, he just looked so good. He looked like he was going to be a sure thing. Okay, so don't get too far ahead of yourself with one exhibition game. So yeah, that's good with Gio. Jeff Persi announced that he was going to the portal. Told Sharon Moore yesterday, along with Grant Newsome, that he was out and that he was hitting the portal. And Persi, we get some tackle talk. Where Persi was going to fit in, if you're a Michigan fan, if this was the old days, you'd say, hey, he's going to be a grad student coming back. This is nice depth, especially with Andrew Gentry. Now, Gentry was somebody you'd say, hey, he's been around, and Persi, these are experienced guys that in a pinch maybe could go in there with some depth, and it would be pretty good. This is what you see with new football now. We watched the bowl game, and Link, who went through a lot this year over at right tackle, they flipped him over to left, and then they brought Sprague in to make his first start. And that looks like the future for Michigan at tackle. Link at left, Sprague at right. If we would all have $100, you'd say, put down the money. I know you think the starting left and right tackle would be. I think 100% of the people out there would put Link and Sprague the money on them. The rookie class, the freshman class that is coming in, Andrew Babalola out of Kansas. Everyone loves him. Avery Gatch from right here in the state of Michigan. I guess you could say he could be an interior offensive lineman. I think he's going to start at tackle. So we'll see, give him that opportunity where he plays. But then I got an asterisk next to Ty Haywood, who just decommitted from Alabama, and, Haywood's visiting Michigan. If I had to put a forecast out for Michigan's next commitment, and their only commitment coming up before February the 5th, and it could happen this weekend, I would say that it would be Ty Haywood, the tackle from Texas. And with Babalola and Haywood, the future looks very bright. And Gatch, by the way. You look at the offensive line, and we're just talking about the tackles right now. This looks very stacked. Also, Michigan is this is something to at least monitor. There is a tackle in the portal from New Mexico State who is down to Michigan and Nebraska, Shaez Pete. Now, I don't know what Nebraska's offensive line looks like, but I know that Link and Sprague, maybe 99 out of 100, the one person would say, I'm gonna put $1 on Shaez Pete to be starting tackle for Michigan. Again, without knowing Nebraska, if you're thinking if you're a portal guy, you want to come in and have a legitimate chance to start. What's Michigan saying to Pete about playing time? And then you just go down from the depth. Connor Jones, Blake Frazier, Brooks Barr, who flipped over, thought he was going to be a defensive guy. Same thing with Luke Hamilton. And then you got Sears and Roebuck, Ben Roebuck. There is where that's the depth, and Gentry and Persi on the outside looking in. It's a pretty nice looking room. Look, when you're talking about Michigan, and we are talking about Michigan, you probably lead with the offensive line. And if you're talking about the offensive line, let's talk about the tackles. And we can see how it sets up. Lincoln Sprague, and then you got Haywood and Babalola and Gatch, and you're thinking like this is the future for Michigan's offensive line. And there you go. Let's take some feedback as we get in here. And before we talk about the Lions, Andres says, personally, I'd rather see a Notre Dame OSU natty dub over another Bama or Georgia. Maybe unpopular, but OSU, Notre Dame, and Penn State have been and always will be Michigan's peers and rivals. Yeah, you don't want anybody to want Michigan to win it, and then so do you want their rival? I mean, you could sit around and look at it a lot of different ways. Like you could say, if Ohio State wins the national championship, the shine and the glow that they will get, and then kids around the country will the recruiting bump, the transfer portal, their brand, that is going to be just worth $1 billion to them. I get that angle. If they somehow lost, believe me, everybody would be like, "Oh, you spent $20 million, you clowns." They will get berated. They had to win it all, or they're still in the situation where it's national championship or bust. Nobody's going to be sitting around saying, "Oh, Ohio State, man, they made it all the way to the championship game. What a great year." No, I lost to Michigan, and then they lost the national championship. They are the scourge of all of college football. What a bunch of bozos. So, I mean, it's still sitting here all or nothing. And if they win, you just turn off the computer for a week or two. Turn off the TV for a month or two. Buy a couple books or something. Or you just got to deal with it. I think I'm going to buy a couple books. I got one for Christmas that I'll be getting into. I got a ways to go on my reading list. Needs to get. I need to start turning the page. I need to start reading, turning the pages, do the same thing, repeat. Let's go. All right. Yeah, people excited. I thought Gio. I didn't know we were waiting on an announcement, but I was anticipating him coming back, and yeah, that is good news. All right, we'll take a few more here, and then we'll talk about the Lions. Blank says it's better if Notre Dame wins. The whole "we beat the champ" stick rings hollow. I prefer going with Notre Dame, quitting the rivalry because they can't beat us over that. Yeah, there's another angle. Yeah, well, there's no question that Michigan's number one rival is Ohio State. Look, there are some people, and I understand this argument that says, Michigan got the 13-10 win, and it's 4 years in a row, and I've seen a few people say it's lost a little bit of its cachet. It's just not worth everything like it always was. And there is a point to that if you dwell on it. Also, I would say that it's been like this for a while. I referenced 21. Michigan won that game down in Columbus. It felt like the greatest win in the world, honestly. With previously, I guess, 21. 22 was at Ohio State when they made the college football playoff by backing in. That win to go 2 in a row after going so long. They hadn't won in Columbus since 2000. It felt like the greatest win ever. I wasn't thinking like, oh, Ohio State backing into the playoffs, lessons to win. I didn't feel like that at all. And then when Michigan won the national championship with everything that was piled into that one, like, oh, winner goes and the loser doesn't. This is for everything. And yeah, it was. It had. It was nice that it was that last one and Michigan was in play for that, but it doesn't make me. I'm not sitting around, crying about it. Well, I wish we could go back to the old days. If we wanted to go back to the old days, so not a 14 playoff, I don't want to go back to a 2-team playoff. I don't want to go back to the BCS. I certainly don't want to go back to just voting teams in where people are like, that's when it was great. No, it wasn't. To be honest with you, that was a bunch of horse crap. College football is the greatest game out there, but sitting around and not having the two teams that are the best play, unless you just like coming up with mythical arguments and you just like arguing just to argue, which a lot of people do. I had a friend who said, no, it was great because you don't play and then you can just talk. No, I want to see the teams play. And we just saw the 4-teamer. So, that I appreciate the argument. I just don't like it. This has been different with the 12-teamer. It's been different in that my wife is every night. She's like, what are you watching another? I'm watching a playoff game. She's like, that's all you do is watch playoff games. I'm like, it's not up. It's not my fault. There's just playoff games on every night now. So it's felt a little bit more like the NFL. I like having more games to watch. I don't think my wife likes it as much. 2 times she was like, are you ready to go? I'm like, well, you get a playoff game. She's like, what? A playoff game? Playoffs? That's what she's over there yelling. Playoffs? How many playoff games are there? I'm like, well, you had the first round. She knows. So I got caught talking too much here. So that's it. That's talking about Pete, last name Pete. Let's go through a few. It's Rip, better late than never. Any news on Poggi? I think Poggi's going to be involved with Michigan this upcoming year. I think it's there. Google, great source. I don't know what we're talking about there. Rico's like, why would I want my rivals to win a natty? Yeah, hey, look, you do have to talk yourself through it. I mean, that's as far as Michigan goes, and you're a Michigan fan, it is a conversation that you have with your friends. It is. So when Monday comes around, it's going to be there again. If I was doing maybe I will be doing a sports talk show on Monday. Actually, I think I might be. I will put the question in. How are you approaching tonight's national championship game as a Michigan fan? And then this is what it is. You have people like, you just lose your mind, kind of. Now, I'm in a good place with Michigan right now, and that has not been the case for most of the 21st century. But these last 4 years, I got to say, it feels like, it's just pretty much utopia as being a Michigan fan. Like, we have not all died and gone to heaven, but it feels like it. Michigan's beating Ohio State. Michigan's making the college football playoff. Michigan's winning the national championship. Even when they have a down year like this year, they're beating Ohio State. I mean, it's great. So it's making the bitterness of having to. I will tell you this: I am going to watch the game, but if it gets to a situation where it is just all that it's over for sure, I'm not watching the confetti come down and Blackbeard stand up on the thing talking about where's Lou Holtz now. None of that. I won't be watching any of that. And I won't be, what I loved last year? I remember I was driving. I don't remember who I had to drive to the airport. I was just in the car all day long, but I listened to Sirius radio all day, and every show, every 2 hours or 3 hours, they'd have a new set of guys coming. So all they do is talk about Michigan. Oh, Michigan, the national championship, Jim Harbaugh. And they're talking about the game and the program. And it was just, it's It's like, man, this is nice. It's really nice. Listening to people talk about Michigan winning a national championship. I won't be sitting around listening to people talk about Ohio State winning the national championship and Ryan Day, feeling like he doesn't have to, go, jump off a bridge into the Olentangy or whatever that thing is. So I don't care about that part. I'll be out quickly. That's it. How does the season tickets package work? Well, I can't say that I've ever bought season tickets for Michigan. I don't know if there is a waiting list for season tickets or if you can just jump in there and say, hey, these are available. I'm in. I don't know that part. If I was going to go to a game, it would be in the press box. I know how to jump through the hoops to get into the press box, but not for season tickets. Like I said, I don't even know if you can buy. I mean, there's a limited amount of season tickets, and then there's the tickets that go on sale in the public. So sorry to be just giving you my answer on that. Notre Dame ain't a rival. They quit the rivalry. That's fair. I like it. Little, you were Michigan's number 2 rival. Now you're not a rival at all. We're not looking at the 2033 season with Michigan has a game scheduled against the Irish. It might cost about $1 million to get season tickets. Could be happening. No, Rip is not a troll. He's just into Michigan football and just a little bit different. That's all. Andres predicts that OSU, Notre Dame, and Penn State are not going to get a boost from the playoff run national championship. NIL is the name of the game. OSU will still recruit from 1 to 10. Michigan, PSU, Notre Dame from 5 to 15. NIL is a major part of the game. Being able to, every kid's different, but kids want to win a national championship. Kids want to play. They want to go to the NFL. They want to probably get an education, and they want money. I know how you order those up. Money. How would I order it up? Well, I would want to get an education. Now, I would want a school that offers all of it. Who's going to give me the most money? Where can I get the best education? Where can I play? And who's going to get me ready for the NFL? Who's the best in all of that? And so if you're going to the playoff and you're winning it all, that is, who's trying to calibrate exactly how it all works. It doesn't hurt, Andres. And in fact, I would disagree with it. I think it does help. All right. Let's see. We're getting a little some crazy stuff. And that happens, it gets a little, when I start acting crazy, it happens. You know what? The press box is not the luxury suite that you think it is. And one time I sat in one of the luxury suites across from the press box, right at the 50, with my friend Steven. Let my wife and I go, and Nicole, they let us in their suite. And oh man, now that is what you want. We sat right there, the window is open, and you turned around and you grabbed your drinks, and so you put them right there. Oh, if you want to go to the bathroom 10 feet away, and there's just nothing better. I mean, there's nothing like the suite life. The press box is stale. You sit there, and let's say Michigan runs back the opening kick. You can't jump up and cheer. You just have to sit there like this. You can't even, sometimes you see guys like under the table, like, yeah. But you're not supposed to do that. You're not supposed to cheer in the press box. It's one of the big changes that I remember in 1995 in my first game, the kickoff Pigskin Classic, Michigan, Virginia. I go in, first of all, half of the games that I'd been to before getting my first press box, I was probably half in the bag. So I'm like, I was perfectly sober. This is a little strange. But then you sit down and there's a great play or the bad, you're like, yeah. No, there's no yeah or cheering. But, media's changed now. And there is a little bit like it's almost accepted where, you see some of the dudes that are in the media now and you like it. You want them to be cheerleaders for you. They're wearing their little Michigan stuff in the press box and, they're kind of pumping their fists a little bit. And, they're like, yeah, that's awesome. Tagging, some of the players and stuff. So it's changed. But it used to be a spot where you're supposed to be a professional and you weren't supposed to be cheering for, what's going, you're supposed to be a conduit for the fans. Now look, that's when normally when you got in, it was mostly newspaper guys and that's their credo. I mean, they're trained as journalists. There's no cheering or anything. There was no internet stuff when I was getting in there. The radio dudes were all looked at like, you're a radio guy. Now anybody can get in there and fans like that. They're super fans. The super fans are the media. It's way different now. I like to tell the story, Mar, of when the Tigers made it to the World Series in 2006. Maglio hit this home run against the A's in the ninth inning and had a walk-off home run to send the Tigers to the World Series. Dan Dickerson into a mob scene at home. And the place is going crazy. I remember walking from the play-by-play booth down to get ready to go down to the clubhouse. And I walked past right behind the plate, where all the media is sitting, and nobody was cheering. Everybody's just sitting there. They're just typing away. Well, meanwhile, everybody else, and not the media. They're just like flatlined sitting there. I always thought it was a little bit weird. I thought when I get into the media, I'm going to remember what it's like to be a fan. I don't want to just be sitting around talking about the hot dogs in the press box or what kind of flight that I need to catch. Who cares? Talk about the games. Remember where you came from. But it's shifted so much to the other side now that I'm surprised that most of the people that are sitting in the press box, they don't have pom-poms in their hands. Almost everyone there is cheering for Michigan, even though they're not supposed to. But they do. But it's what the people want. You guys want cheerleaders. All right. Ask Michigan sports questions. Is Wink really leaving? I would guess if a team offers Wink, he is gone. Yes, with the exception of the Sharks beating the Red Wings, there was what? It was a 31 of 32 if you put Michigan State basketball and Michigan basketball into the equation. Into Detroit sports. I know we don't do that. We, Michigan fans. Absolutely not. Brady Hoke should not have got one more year. And let's see, just need one more season to mentor Morgan. Yeah, now I like that. If we could just ask for something, I would ask for Wink Martindale to return for one more year. And Wink Martindale with the idea that Wink Martindale next year, when he, puts the vice on the Big Ten and scheming everything up, that's when young Lamar Morgan, 40 years old, he's 39 now, 40, 41 years old, would then take over after learning for 2 years under Wink. Perfect succession plan. I'm with you. That's it. That's what I'm talking about. Okay. That's where we're at. We conclude today's show with talking about the Detroit Lions and their game coming up on Saturday night. They will take on the Commanders. It is an 8 o'clock start on Fox. The Lions have moved up. I looked right before the game, or I'm sorry, the show, and they are up to now a 9.5 point favorite. Everything could get you worried. A move in the line, like, oh my God, everybody likes the Lions. I'm not feeling that part right here. Also, am I feeling Kevin Burkhardt and Tom Brady and Aaron Andrews and Tom Rinaldi? Therefore, I think there'll be a lot of complaining and everything. If the Lions win, I don't care. You know that part. I like that David Montgomery's back. There's a lot of people like, man, Gibbs have shown out so much since Montgomery's been hurt. They should just keep the pedal to the metal with Gibbs. Look, Montgomery really the punch and the counter punch of Gibbs and Montgomery is one of the great things that makes this Lions offense go. There's so many weapons that they have. Adding back Montgomery only helps. It keeps Gibbs fresh. And you're not just talking about, but I think they'll spoon feed Montgomery a little bit. I don't think it's going to be a 50-50, whatever you want to say, 75-25 if I had to make my prediction, but I don't think there's anything to worry about there. It's good that Montgomery's coming back, and they'll know how to use him. Meanwhile, what I think about Jaden Daniels is that it is crystal clear, I think, to everyone, and that the Chicago Bears should have selected Jaden Daniels. Jaden Daniels, as he was the best quarterback. I didn't think that, Caleb Williams is a generational player and all this. And even though he paints his hands pink and whatever else he does, that was a little different. He's just the greatest thing all time. No, Daniels was the pick. Now I know Patriot fans, they wouldn't trade, Drake May for Caleb Williams, but I just wanted to say that. I think it's clear to everyone, even Bear fans, that Daniels and the guy, but the way the Commanders have played this year, they're really on some kind of run. They've won so many games, 5 in the regular season in the fourth quarter with comebacks, 6 now because they did it last week. And the way Daniels plays, it's like, not that he just woke up from a nap, but he's kind of just like, he doesn't seem like he breathes. Like they'll have him in the fourth quarter, under a minute to go. They got to score. It's 4th down. And they show a close up of him. And he's just like this. He's just chilling. Very comfortable. Flatlined. And he doesn't take sacks. He doesn't commit turnovers. And he just makes great plays. What did they go for? 5 times last week against Tampa? I don't know. Will anybody kick? Going to be a lot of, the totals, 56, I think, touchdowns everywhere. I think the Lions I will feel comfortable if the Lions have a double-digit lead in the fourth quarter. But, man, I feel like the Lions are going to win. But the way Daniels has played on the money downs and these big-time situations, I don't know. And usually I'm pretty good at hanging in there and just watching a game. But if it came down to the Lions being up by 6 and the Commanders had it from the 40-yard line and the only thing they had was a Hail Mary left, I'm really not sure that I think I would have to excuse myself from the room. I think I would just go and I don't know. Do I have to watch it? Do I have to stand there and do I have to, maybe I'll get my phone and set it up in the corner and train it on me and I'll know that I have the camera and then I'll just watch what happens. And then if it's, something terrible, I'll have it for social media. I'm not doing that. I don't know. Yeah, that's where I'm at. The only other thing I had on there is McLaren. Speaking of Buckeye, he's a pretty good wide receiver. He is, I would say, underrated. What else? I don't want to throw too many backslaps out there to Buckeyes, but Daniels, I'll give him a backslap. I mean, that guy, he has been, he's had a better. He plays a lot like Lamar Jackson. I mean, he can throw the ball a mile, especially outside the numbers, down the sideline, and he just has a great arm, just precision with those bombs that he throws outside the numbers, and then he's just so casual when he's running the ball. Let me just go and take off for 15. He just sachets down the field, and he's stepping out of bounds. Just have a big lead in the fourth quarter, and don't let it come down to a Hail Mary. So that's where I'm sitting with the game. I think the Lions will win by 14. That's where I'm at. All right. Keegan is going to make a statement on the Lions. He doubts Daniels will be ready for the Lions, but he has looked good. Meanwhile, Rip is saying, like the live. Thank you. Yeah, not everyone that's a Michigan fan is also a Lions fan. I understand that. Like, I know Andres, who's on here, is a Browns fan. That's what happened. And I get that part. So I can't be too phony about the Lions because growing up, I would have my uncles tell me never to invest emotionally in the Lions because they'll tear your heart out. And I can remember in the early 80s when they had a chance to beat San Francisco and and they had Eddie Murray, who was a really good field goal kicker. And the Lions had a chance to, win that playoff game over the 49ers. And the 49ers would go on and become a dynasty with Joe Montana and everything, Bill Walsh. They called us in right out of the front yard. They said, come on in. We're playing football out in the front yard. And we went in there, and boy, there must have been a lot of beers and everything going for all these people that were watching. And he missed the field goal. And the diatribes that were coming out from the people that were the older people about just how miserable the franchise was, that stuck with me. And I hated William Clay Ford. I was right with everybody else that the franchise would never go anywhere until he was, you say the meanest things. Till he was, 6 feet under, and then people get a little boost when his wife took Marth Vader. No, I didn't really see it there, but Sheila Hamp, that doesn't go by Sheila Ford. It's Sheila Hamp. She asked Spielman what to do. And I don't know if Spielman was like, hey, hire this Brad Holmes. I think that's what happened. And then Brad Holmes is the greatest hire in Detroit sports history. And, Brad Holmes, a couple days later, is like, I'm picking Dan Campbell. This, big, meathead dude from the tight end, like a rah-rah guy that's going to be gambling all the time. And he's going to be our coach. And those two, man, guys it feels like they're miracle workers, but they're just great at their jobs. Holmes is great. Campbell, I've been doubting Campbell. The last time I was doubting Campbell. The San Francisco game. I didn't think he should have been, playing. He gambled with playing his starters, and he won. I mean, he keeps doing it, There's only 3 times this year. Of that first game against Minnesota, the first drive, he was going for he fake punt from his own 20. I was like, you don't need to do that. And there was 1 or 2 more. I was like, what was the game that they won? Was it the Packers where they went for it on the 4th and inches? It was not that one. I actually thought that was decent, but then he was going for it with Gibbs, from his own 30 on a 4th and 2. I didn't like that one either, but hey, they're in great position right now. It's going to be a great run. All right. That's what I have to say about it. We'll take a few more on the feedback. See what people have to say. Oh, Rip is a Browns fan. Weird that's the case. I don't wish Mason Graham going on. The Lions curse is over. Yeah, I think. Yeah, they're in great position. I was just giving you should I not talk about the history of, how I hated him or anything else? Just talk about how the sky has opened up and it's just all Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell. Yeah, I feel that now. I'm right with you. I even like, who's the guy that I hated? That was their accountant or whatever that they made into the president. And then, he came out and was like, hey, we're not only like the free season ticket holder symposium or whatever they brought in. He's like, not only are we raising tickets this year, we're raising them next year. I was like, what? Oh, that guy. But even he's out there now, and we got positive things to say about him now too. But that's it. Couple more here. Better late than never for Ferris. When OSU plays Notre Dame, he's rooting for the sinkhole, but he's going to be rooting for Notre Dame. Anybody but OSU. Yeah, Ferris has been good at coming up with the lines about how to approach the Ohio State game. The Lions are America's team. Could we get just a chicken wing special show? Where I eat wings and talk U of M sports. I think you're onto something. I like that. But what I could tell you about shows where people that are talking about sports and also eating, it goes terrible. It sounds like a good idea and maybe eating like during a break, but having people like chewing into a microphone, it ends up being a terrible broadcast. Anybody that does it right at the end of the show, you get a bunch of donuts or a barbecue or something else. And the last 30 seconds, you want to start, that's fine. But trying to talk with food in your mouth is, it doesn't look good and it sounds terrible. But it's a good idea to go to a place and eat wings and then talk about it. So that's it. Keegan, that would be good. Keegan could sit here and then I'd say, hey, Keegan, how are the wings? Just, one finger for, and you could just talk about it. Let's see what Dave says. There wouldn't be nearly as many big Michigan fans if Detroit had a pro football team between 57 and 23. I think there's plenty of room for Michigan and Lions fans. I don't, but maybe you're right. I should, by all accounts, have been this gigantic Lions fan. First year that the Silverdome opened up, my dad, took me and my brother down there and, all those kind of things. But I always thought that I liked Michigan. I liked Michigan. They were successful. Bo but they also have the stadium, open air stadium, and they were really good. So I mean, if the Lions were really good, I think I would have stayed like the same kind of Michigan fan and been, because I know it's all relative, but I love college football and it's number one, but I love pro football. There's a lot of people that are like, nah, forget the pros. But you might be right about that. I feel like I know a few people that have gone and we're back to the season ticket. They're season ticket holders for the Lions and season ticket holders for Michigan. I mean, that's a hell of a fall. A lot of doing the double weekend sometimes. It's pretty crazy. Yeah, going back and naming all the guys that we don't like. That's it. Okay. Yeah. All right. So we'll be back on Friday. I want to remind everyone that if you like talking Michigan, that's what we do at the Maize and Blue Review over on the posting board that is called The Den. And that is something that happens, that runs all the time. It's always open. All day, all night. Michigan fans in there talking about what's going on with Michigan. And then the experts bringing you the latest recruiting news and talking to the inside sources, doing all of that. Rip is getting in on a chicken wing show. He's sponsoring it. All right, well, with that, Rip, I will have to do it to come up with a chicken wing show after I already gave my parameters of that. I want to tell everyone to go to michigan.rivals.com and you can get instant access on the Maize and Blue Review right now. So I'll have to schedule the chicken wing show, Rip, but I'll do it. I mean, you've asked. Keegan says 20 will get us 5 wings. That's all right. That's all right. You know, I was going to do it anyway. I mean, I said I'd do it anyways, but you know, it's nice to kind of feel sometimes like, you know, the piano man, you know, Billy Joel, you know, he's just sitting there and he's got his glass up on top of the piano. And, you know, Billy sometimes will put his heart and soul into it and sing a song and he'll look over and there won't be anything over in the jar. And then sometimes it's a real nice surprise when he's getting the money that is folding. Wasn't that the line in Coming to America? We're happy to take your donations that ring, but we'd rather have the ones that fold. And coming over the top here at the end is our man. And it is THS, Towns Health Services, who once again, I didn't really know about the color coordination when it comes to the tip jar, but now I feel like we could go on and sing a couple more songs here and bring it on out. That'll get us some hot wings. Let's go. Let's talk about it. Let's do it. It's all there. And it is, it's a lot of fun to sit here and talk about Michigan. Let's, for everyone else, sometimes people say, when I read the feedback, some comments when, you know, people tell you to like and subscribe and to comment on the show. I read some of the comments. One of the first comments of the show is like, he's all right, but he just goes on and never gets to the point. So let me practice getting to the point. Let's try it. Let's get into it. We'll start it out. I got to get to the beginning of this. And let's start it out. Let's see how quickly I could do it if I was doing it. And for that, I would be like this. All right, I'd hit this button. Well, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome in. We got a ton of things to talk about. Let's get right to it. Wink Martindale, he interviewed yesterday with the Falcons. He is currently in Indianapolis talking to the Colts. My opinion is if he gets an offer to be a defensive coordinator in the NFL, it is goodbye to Wink. One and done for Martindale. What comes next? Who would replace him? For me, you know, you look to the Ravens and you look to the Chargers, you look to the Martindale tree. There got to be a half dozen names that you're familiar with. The one that I think was the guy that I thought should have been hired last year, and that is Steve Clinkscale out of Youngstown, Ohio. Knows the system, knows Ann Arbor, knows the Midwest, and boy, you listen to Clink talk. You want to play for him. He's somebody that commands respect, and he's someone that I could see with his play calling shoot, getting over there, and then I can see him the way he recruits and just the way that guys want to play for him. He would be a home run hire. Clink for DC if Wink flies the coop. All right, some other things. You had an offensive lineman in Jeff Persi. He has hit the transfer portal. And, Perse, you say, hey, thanks and good luck. But Michigan's looking really good right now. They are set in the recruiting front to get Ty Haywood, who's coming in to visit this weekend. And that'll make the future not just look bright, it'll make it look as good as anybody with bookend tackles. If you've got Haywood and you've got Babalola, and there's going to be some NFL teams that would like to have those guys sitting in the wings and ready to take over. Meanwhile, not too shabby with Michigan having Evan Link at left tackle, who really came into his own late in the season, flipped over to the left side where he's more comfortable. And then, Andrew Sprague, who we had heard about at all the practices and how he was just going to be the next great Michigan tackle. He played right tackle, and he got the highest marks and passed it with flying colors. And then we got some late news coming in is Gio El-Hadi. Wouldn't surprise me if he would be Michigan's captain next year. He has confirmed that he has accepted the challenge to come back and play right guard for Michigan next year. Crippen, El-Hadi, Link, Sprague. Michigan has brought in 2 transfer portal guards, one from Cal Poly and one from Ferris State. And, Michigan is still on a offensive lineman, and that you want to keep an eye on it. And his name is Shayez Pete. He's in the transfer portal, a tackle from New Mexico State. He is down to Michigan or Nebraska. So maybe, Jolin will jump in and, I don't know, whatever they're saying to him, he's got a chance to compete. Hey, Pete, you want to compete? Come on in. You could be the starting right tackle, starting left tackle. I don't know which one he is, but you'd have his chance. You could be the swing tackle. Michigan plays, 5, 6, 7 offensive linemen sometimes. Come on down, Pete. And Michigan will want to repeat the 2023 season with Shayez if he accepts the challenge. And there we go. So that's it. Lions are playing on Saturday night. I like them to win by 9.5. It's America's team. Everybody is just behind Dan Campbell and Brad Holmes. This is a team that just brings joy to your heart. And it's great after so many of those years that we don't talk about. But, now they're center stage. And they win this game. We're talking about NFC Championship game and then the Super Bowl, which was a dirty word around these parts, but not anymore, folks. It is a beautiful thing to speculate and contemplate. And Michigan, the state of Michigan, will all be behind the Detroit Lions if they could do it. That's going to do it for today's show. Little short, little sweet, but hey, that's getting right to the point. We'll talk with you. Give us some outro music. We'll talk with you coming up on Friday. Everybody have a great couple days. We'll see you over on the Maize and Blue Review.